Hi, this is Sarah Montrowl, Working Associate Trainer with Art2Ride. Here we have a video submission from Chrissy and her 11-year-old mare, Karisma. I believe Chrissy's had Karisma since she was a baby, so she's done a really nice job bringing her along here. I think the first submission, there was a previous submission that Chrissy did of under saddle work, and at that point she'd only been doing Art2Ride for about 2 months or so. So she was, I think it was in March that she submitted it. So this is actually primarily focused, this critique is primarily focused on her lunge work and the in-hand work. So just to address real quick the setup we have here, it looks like you have decided to use both the Shambo and the side reins. I think that's a great idea based on that first video. She was a bit inconsistently popping up, so we'd get a very deep stretch and then pop up, brace up a little bit, and then kind of almost root and stretch again. This combination of using the Shambo and the side reins, I think, really helps bring the consistency here. And since this is a mare that is not broken over, she does want to seek the contact. I think the Shambo just keeps her from hollowing out, and the side reins basically give her that level of consistency into the contact. So I love this mare's walk. She's just got a fantastic hind end, and I think she's going to be really fun to watch develop here. As you can see, she in the walk, she gets a great over track. She wants to step up. Just knowing how fantastic her walk is and actually how strong she is behind, I might send her on just a little more here. I think what you could do is actually bring her two options. I would say maybe that was you're starting to get a nice trot over there on that side. Two options, I would say, start her with the in-hand work, get her to give through her body a little more, get those hips to push out, get her to lift up that inside shoulder and step out away from you a little bit. Then translate that to the lunge work afterwards by keeping her on a smaller circle to start with, getting her nice and consistently moving from the whip and then softening into the contact on your line, and then slowly letting her out as she starts to stay more consistently soft. So you can see here she just kind of gets a little hollow, and then she kind of gets disconnected. Then she tries to find the stretch again. I think if you just keep her on a smaller circle until she gets settled in the stretch, then I think that might be a good plan for you. I think you'll get more consistent stretch. So she has a lovely canter too. This is going to be a really fun horse. She actually stays really nicely over her back in the majority of the time in this gait. So this is one of those rare cases. I think this is not a bad idea to actually canter this horse, because she's just a little behind the, what I would say behind the leg in the trot, or she's lacking a little impulsion. I think generally the canter will help improve that. Sometimes the walk, if we can't get a nice forward walk, then it doesn't translate well to the trot. So sometimes a canter works well to then create a little more impulsion in the trot. So here again, at the sake of being a little redundant, I might bring her in on a circle and just ask her to soften a little bit more and stay consistently soft in my hand. But I really like your instincts here, bringing her back to the walk, and I see you're even shortening the line here. Get a little more activity there in that walk would be great. I think if you could build a little more activity in the walk, then you might also stand a better chance of having a little better contact on the line, a consistent contact, which will then translate to her wanting to stay a little more consistently in the stretch. But really, all things considered, very, very nice walk. You get some really nice deep moments there. I really like the level of relaxation I'm seeing here too, and it's really only been a couple months and she's already made such progress, so you're doing a fantastic job here. And really, the impulsion and everything can be built in once they understand the stretch, and I think that's where you are right now with her, is just trying to explain that you want consistency of stretch. Nice. And then you get a nice transition there where she actually searches for the contact into the transition. So again, I would keep her on that smaller circle, send her on here, get those hocks really cycling, and then let her back out on the big circle. Yeah, there you go. That's nice work. Another thing to consider is maybe shortening the Shambo just a little bit if you feel she's kind of relaxed and is comfortable with the Shambo. I never like to do it any tighter than the pole to the wither kind of level. I want to make sure that we're not forcing the head down, but I see in certain instances in this video, I see that she can still kind of wedge up against the contact a little bit. So I might want to just shorten that a little bit. I think she might feel that pressure and want to stretch even a little deeper, actually. So good. So even here, I'd send her on just a little bit, but really she's looking nice and relaxed. You're starting to get a really nice rhythm going too. Nice. And really great instincts, like I said, about bringing her back to the walk. The walk really is our teaching gait. It's kind of where we get to explain to them what we're looking for in the other gaits. And so when I have a horse that sort of likes to pop up a lot, what I try to do is actually do primarily walk work. Only keep a few strides, like maybe sometimes even just a circle of trot work, and then bring them back to the walk again as soon as as kind of a reward, and then slowly build on that. Because I think what you can do there is, if it's a strength issue, then of course the walk, that's a little easier for them, and then you're only doing correct strides of trot, and they're not getting, they're not doing any hollow work, right? Our goal being that we spend as much time working over the back as possible. Ideally, everything we do in whatever gait it is over the back. So again, nice walk. You get some nice impulsed walk on this direction too, actually. And it even gets a little deep, she wants to even get a little deeper this way, which is great. Yeah, this is really nice. And the other thing that I was thinking of after watching that video, the first video critique, was just based on how much more consistent this mare is on the lunge line here. I don't see nearly as much of that wanting to pop up and plunge down. I would actually explore the possibility that maybe it's a slightly tight saddle fit issue up front. When they stretch forward and down, those muscles expand around their withers, and that's kind of, to me, a telltale like saddle fit issue. There she goes. Getting her back up though. Nice to get a little impulsion here. But anyway, just to continue that, I would say that if this doesn't translate to under saddle work, if you get this lovely consistent stretch on the on the lunge work, and then you sit on her and she's doing the popping up and plunging down again, it may be that it's a little tight up by her withers and that she's hitting a little resistance when she goes to stretch, and so she pops up to relieve that pressure. Yeah, so she gets herself a little disconnected after that. Again, this is, I think, an opportunity where I would have brought her in on the circle and kind of make her work, and because you get some really nice moments. Her mind's not as in tune with you as she was the other direction. So I'd say like here is where I would want to really use that whip to reinforce pushing those hips out, getting her bent through her body a little better, almost as if you were working inside leg to outside rein, really getting her to settle into the contact here, and send her forward a little bit too. There you go. Yeah. But you're getting some really nice moments, and honestly, like I said, the other direction, she's starting to really develop a nice rhythm. And I like too that you ride this mare nice and forward. I saw in your video, the first video, she really is a nice way of going. I mean, it's going to be really fun to watch her develop, because I think she's got such a strong hind end. Once you get the back developed and you create sort of that bridge between the hind end and the front end, you'll start to see how she really unlocks through the shoulders. I think you'll get a nice uphill moving horse, actually, because she really's got a nice shoulder on her too. So this will be very fun to watch. Yeah, and so here I would send her on just a little more. And, sometimes, I like to use the work in hand, when required. So, for instance, after she kind of went a little crazy there and she started to hollow out on you and disconnect a little, I actually would then sit there and say, okay, I'm going to work her in hand now, get her refocused. As long as she's quiet enough for you to do the in hand work, I think that's a great way to capture the mind too. So if you have a horse that's a little distracted or ADD about things, work in hand is an amazing cure for it. And I think you wind up getting, that was a really nice few strides of walk you got there where she was really pushing to the contact. But I think you'll find that you will have more consistency in the walk and trot if you do the work in hand before lunging. So yeah, she's really starting to get the idea of the deep stretch, because those were a nice few strides there. I think if you just send her on a little more when she gets to that stretch. So I always see what else is in there. When my horse starts to stretch down really deep, it's actually when they unlock their shoulders the most, they kind of get out of their own way. So that's the time where I sit there and say, what else is in here? Can we send her on a little bit? Can we get a bit more cycling with the hocks behind? Can she get a little deeper in the stretch? Can she stay more consistent? But really nice. You're doing a great job here. Yeah. A nice level of activity this direction. She's not stretching as deeply right now, but I like, this is I think a better trot than she had the other direction. Very nice. Yep, again, that's, getting a nice rhythm. She's got nice activity level. Nice. Then you get a really nice walk. Starts to really unlock through her body, or really back starts to flow a little bit. Very nice. Nice, and she's staying a little more consistent here too, and I, partly probably because she's warmed up and she's got a little more activity. But this is I think what we want to shoot for her walk. Good activity level. So focusing on the in-hand work here, I might, since she understands the stretch very well, I might actually spend a little more time. You really get to a nice place right at the end of this work in hand where you're really getting her to move away from you and do some nice lateral work. I might actually try to start there. And I don't believe you have a whip in hand. Maybe I'm wrong. But I would actually, the whip is a useful tool in the sense that it really does explain. Number one, it makes us focus on what the hind end and the body is doing, right? So I think that the danger with work in hand is getting a little too fixated on just the front part of the horse. And I think that's why it's very valuable to stand more toward the shoulder, like, focusing on pushing that body away from you rather than worrying about the head so much. I think it's really a feel thing, right? So what we're trying to accomplish here, which you're doing a really nice job here, is establishing that contact in the outside rein. But what we want to be focused on is the fact that this starts from the left hind here, right? So if you were facing her with the whip in your right hand, I would always say you activate with the whip first and then step her into that right rein. It's not a matter of catching the front end. So here she gets a little bracy and she wants to kind of pop up. That's where you would have needed to use a whip and send her on into that outside rein. And I think the beauty about using a whip too for this exercise is that it's going to be useful for you to translate it to under saddle work, to help reinforce the lunge whip when you're lunging the horse. Good. So now you're doing a little more lateral work. But you see, you almost have to push her here. And I think if you had a whip, this is where you would want to send her into that outside rein. And so what I would do is hold the rein on your right hand, palm up, and slightly further down. So like you're actually getting her to, with the whip in hand, with the right hand. And I would step her into that outside rein versus trying to soften her down. So for her, in this situation, for instance, it's an activity issue that's keeping her from staying consistent. It's not necessarily a contact issue, if that makes sense. So I think you're really doing some great work with her here. I see that she's, such improvement already. I think I already see some muscle development. I know that she's at a little drop behind the saddle before, but I started to see that's starting to fill in nicely. And here she gets a little backed off the hand. Again, I think that's what's important about having a whip in this exercise, is that we really have to stay focused on the fact that the work in hand, everything we do here starts from the hind end, right? Everything hind end and just back up, and then we worry about the contact. Nice. There, so that's where here she could use just a little more activity. And so where you get to the end here, when you get that very last little bit of work in hand here, I really start to see her move, unlock her shoulders, really step under with her hind end. She starts to really give to you. I think that's the kind of work that will really help to get her to stay consistently soft on the lunge line too, and under saddle as well. So I think not a bad idea. I even start my horse, I start my work in hand to the left and then lunge, and then I do my work in hand to the right and then lunge on horses that are not as consistently staying in the stretch like this. But really looking forward to seeing her come along. You've just done such a great job with her so far. You're definitely on the right track here. I'd be very excited to see your work under saddle too. I'd love to see how this is translating to that. I think at this point you're doing exactly the right thing. Keep at it. I think majority lunge and in-hand work and just a little riding, but really nice there. Yeah, great work there. Again, lovely walk this mare has. Very nice. I like that we're getting a little shoulder fore. I think that'll help. And I think, with the whip will help her from doing that kind of curling, so relying too heavily on the contact. But really wonderful job. I can't wait to see your next submission. Keep up the great work. Look forward to hearing from you again.